Welcome to the Women in Vinyl podcast with Jen DiEugenio, founder of Women in Vinyl and contributor Robin Raymond. This podcast facilitates conversations with those working in the vinyl record industry to educate, demystify, and diversify the vinyl community.
Before we jump in, an announcement. Our book, Women in Vinyl, The Art of Making Vinyl, comes out officially this week. Find more information and order a copy at womeninvinyl.com/book. Thank you for joining us on a milestone episode, the Big 5-0 of the Women in Vinyl podcast. You just heard Everything to Me by Brisbane-based maker of dark and danceable electro pop and synth rock, Sarah Stockholm, off her album, Trace of Humanity. Find this and the vinyl copy at www.sarahstockholm.bandcamp.com. For our 50th episode, we are going international, sitting down with Kathy Wilson, co-owner of Suitcase Records in Brisbane, Australia. We chat with Kathy about how the vinyl market looks in Australia, how it differs from North America, and what it was like to open a pressing plant down under, and more. Also, we were listed as number 11 on FeedSpot's top 25 vinyl record podcasts on the web. Please continue to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. And thank you for being here. Now here's the episode. Could you tell our listeners a little bit about you?
Yeah, sure. My name is Kathy Wilson. I'm co-owner of Suitcase Records in Brisbane, Australia. We are the third vinyl pressing plant in Australia.
Woo!
And Suitcase Records is about 2.5 years old now. You're probably going to ask why. And your next probably question is going to be, do you have any industry? Did you have any business doing this? First answer to the why is, it was actually my husband's idea. I co-own the business with my husband. He had a bit of a midlife crisis, I guess. Hated what he was doing. He was an architect working in big construction firms, was unhappy, was looking for a new adventure. He was actually the vinyl head in the family, loved it, saw, what we all saw in those days, kind of take yourself back 3-4 years, more demand than supply, particularly in Australia. I know, you guys talk a lot about it from your perspective. Australia, we might get into that, but we've got a bit of a different kind of dynamic here. And so our kids were largely grown up. We've got sort of 2/3 of them are adults now. And so we did, it sounds irrational, but we both have a corporate business background. So we did, a plan, how you do. And the sums worked out. And so we sold our house and bought a vinyl pressing plant.
And then lived there.
And here we are. And so it was a leap of faith. And so then pretty quickly, the plan was I was going to stay doing my very sensible corporate job, which I loved. And became very quickly apparent that there was actually two critical roles in the business, and he couldn't do both of them. And we looked at hiring somebody to do the second part of that, your sort of second half of that role. And turns out you can't hire somebody to care as much as you do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I started to get the bug. And so I left my job because, we didn't quite take enough risk. So I then left my job and here full time. And best decision we've ever made. I just love it so much. And so since then, I'm late to the party, but I am a vinyl head. I love vinyl. I feel slightly fraudulent, but I think my love for it compensates for my lack of history. It's my working theory.
Well, what was the experience moving into starting this pressing plant? How did you decide like what machines and facility you needed?
We researched, I guess, the options that were on offer at the time. We went with an Allegro 2, and you're probably familiar with that. Mm-hmm. Really happy with it. You know, I think that there's good and bad in all. Well, you know, there's pros and cons for all of them. One of the things that we love, we've only got one machine. And the plan was, I guess, originally that we were going to start with one and grow. Now we're really thinking that maybe stay with one for a while. What we're enjoying about the Allegro is that it's got a it's automatic. It's producing really high quality records, but it's also got a semi-automatic function, which means we can do splatters as well. Yep. And that's working out really well. So it's basically given us a depth of options that maybe some of the other machines couldn't have done.
Cool.
That's great.
So are you pressing too?
Me physically?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Some days
I'm great.
More. Yeah. I love doing splatters. I think they're really fun.
Yeah.
We did some yesterday actually. That yes, we do. We sort of swap it all around. We try and keep the roles mixed up a little bit, but I guess mostly Neil and Lee in the factory. I tend to be in the front end, but we work through both of it as well.
Awesome.
That's great. I think it helps on the sales side and office side if you know how everything runs. Like I make sure to immerse myself and know, you know, how many records we can get off and what goes into the mixes and all of the ins and outs of it. Even if we're talking about boilers, I want to be in that conversation so that I can best direct everything else that happens.
Absolutely. I was astonished when we first started it. Again, to my naivety, which I'll own, I think, I thought you'd buy a pressing machine, plug it in and press go and off you'd go. And that sounds ludicrous now to me, but it's not that far from the truth. And the auxiliary stuff is just as critical, because if your chiller's not working, particularly, you know, we're in Brisbane, it gets really hot here. It was, you know, 38 or something degrees yesterday. If your chiller's not working, you're not pressing good vinyl.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so you can have the best machine in the whole world. You can have the best setup and scheduling system, etc., and you ain't pressing vinyl that day. So it's all important. And I can't just walk away from it and say, oh, I'm not too bothered about that. Let's, you know, somebody else will worry about it. I wish somebody else would worry about it, but it's all of us. There's three of us, four sometimes. It's all hands on deck. I'll tell you even more. So when we were in our early days, we had maybe our fifth or sixth order, we had this glorious band come out. It was the first people who came out to the factory. We weren't air conditioned at that time. We were shed, right? Which is, we still are. And they came out and they were pressing yellow, and we practiced because, you know, we were really new to it, and it was, you know, new. So this band came out and wanting to see their pressing. Yeah. And it worked before they arrived. They arrived about maybe 11 a.m. or something. We tested about 9. Everything was fine. 11, they walk in, stick, just never seen it before. And it just happened. So, you know, really awkward, me chatting, trying to keep everybody busy. This is fine. We're not scared. Finally, we gave up and said, look, can you come back tomorrow? We don't know what's going on. Yeah. And Neil spent most of like 8 hours cleaning the machine. We thought it might have been the air vents, or, you know, we didn't know. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so again, we tested at 8 o'clock the next morning. Fine. They arrived 10 o'clock the next morning, stuck. It was, and we laugh about it now. They're actually now some really consistent customers, I guess, because we were honest and because we said, truly, we don't know what's going on. Because up until then, we hadn't hit it. Yeah. And turns out that it was in about, I guess it was beginning of November that was happening. And we just hit humidity in Queensland, which is subtropical. And because there hadn't been a vinyl pressing plant in Queensland for 30 years, nobody remembered that humidity is really problematic in a vinyl pressing plant. So we had to find the money to put a wall in and get air conditioners like that weekend.
Oh, wow.
And the same band came out Tuesday of the next day. Perfect. Worked great.
Yep.
They loved us. Everything was great. It was a happy ending, but it was that kind of level of learning that we just had to be really open about and say, really sorry, we don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I feel like more customers need to know that. Like it's
Yeah.
truly an adventure in record pressing. Like one day it
Yep.
can be fine. The next day, like,
Totally.
you know, and we're the same. I'm in Austin, Texas. So
Yep.
same kind of things, heat, humidity. Some days
Are you guys air conditioned?
we have air condition. Yeah.
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 Yeah. But that doesn't solve everything, right?
No, because the chiller's still
humidity.
exposed, you know, so
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. And so, you know, that there was just those learnings. And one of the things that we're grateful for and has helped us create a community is that those musicians understood. And like I say, they're back again. I don't know, this is maybe their third or fourth album with us. And
Awesome.
people want to know that things are real. And we never, you know, and we always make sure, so we don't let out anything that we don't love. And sometimes it doesn't mean we delay, but it means sometimes we're here till all hours because we're not prepared to send anything out that isn't awesome. But we tell people that, and people are respecting that, and I think enjoying that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many people do you have on your crew?
There's Neil and I, there's Lee, who's full-time, and we've got June, who's nearly full-time, hopefully full-time soon.
Amazing.
And we've also got our 3 kids.
Yeah.
Our eldest does our social media,
Yeah.
and the middle one is doing, he's actually just created a robotic creation that allows us to do automatic hand pouring.
Cool.
Yeah, he's doing robotics at uni. And our daughter is 17, and she comes out lots and is here to do, they're the on-demand crowd when we need sleeving, and we've got to get 4,000 records out or something like that. So
you better get him on that patent.
Yeah,
Sorry?
you better get, yeah.
You
totally.
better get him on that patent for the robotic hand pour.
Totally.
It's a game changer. It's been so good.
That's crazy.
I mean, I can already hear Heath at Gotta Groove, just like his ears perking up. I can hear it.
Yeah. And he's a crazy inventor, our son. So it's pretty great. So
Cool.
yeah, that's the plan. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that your family's so involved. So what was your crazy corporate job that you loved that you left?
I was in corporate communications, so I was doing large-scale content for companies like Expedia and Travelocity. We were producing content for them for SEO purposes mostly.
Yep. Cool.
Which I loved. It was great.
Yeah.
Interesting crossover. In that job, I used to manage about 30 people or so, somewhere between 20 and 30 people. So one of the things that's been interesting to us is we walked into the music industry, not being part of the music industry, and foolishly or not, decided that we just kind of opened up and sort of literally put up our shingle, and here we were. And you could probably argue that was a bad idea, but you could probably one of the good things about it is that we came to the industry with no preconceptions. And so I think there's a fair bit in the industry of it's been this way because it's always been this way.
Mm-hmm.
And we both, Neil and I think, are coming to it looking at, this is happening now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is another way of looking at it. And I think it's quite good to have we just don't have the baggage or not the baggage even, but just the history.
And I'm curious, how did the industry support or accept you coming in? And then also how was your local community and wanting to start a pressing plant after 30 years of none in Brisbane?
Yeah. Did people tell you were nuts?
Not as much as they should have, really, in hindsight.
That's great.
I think a lot of people genuinely really respect a leap of faith.
Uh-huh.
I think people like people who are taking a chance and having an adventure. It's sort of separate to that. We were really well received by the majors. They came to us. We got an article in the national paper quite early on, and within 24 hours we'd been contacted by all the majors who were interested to know that we were here and have been really supportive of us, and game-changingly supportive of us, which has been really, really great. And it would have been really easy for them to say, oh no, we'll stick with what we know. And it seems to me that they've done a really good job they've sort of expanded the market by using everybody, not necessarily playing favorites. So I think that's been really good. And I think it's interesting here because, we have different dynamic. Historically, the majors tend to import a lot of the overseas artists. They get pressed over Europe usually and get imported here because probably, it's cheaper to get it done over there. It's not as cheap when you think about if you have to air freight stuff over here, certainly the prices change, and ship freighting or sea freighting is cheaper but longer. And you've also got issues of it can be hot, can be damaging, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it feels to me like a lot of the majors are starting to think, well, what about if we've got these great pressing plants in Australia now? Let's think about maybe we can press for Australia in Australia, some of those international artists. So there's kind of conversations around that, which I'm very much looking forward to.
Yeah, I mean, the regional approach always makes total sense.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Total sense. Yeah, we absolutely have.
And I think it makes environmental sense as well. So I think that's where it's going. And I think, and then what's interesting to me as well is you asked about the smaller community. We've had a lot of smaller artists. We do minimum runs of 100. And artists are loving that. We get artists come out to the factory. We had an artist come out to the factory a couple of days ago who teared up. A major artist teared up seeing his music on vinyl for the first time. We have a machine here that we play it on, and you can't replicate that. No. Musicians are musicians for a reason. They're artists, and it was beautiful. It was a really beautiful moment. We're at a not very fancy factory near the airport, and people love to discover behind that. I think people think our lives are, they're more glamorous than they are. As per the phone call that keeps running. I think people like it. It feels like it's a little pot of magic in the middle of an industrial space, which I love. Totally, I really love.
Yeah.
What was your question?
Oh, I was just gonna say, who does your stampers?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Well, we get Curve Pusher in the UK.
Oh, yeah.
And Stamper Disc.
Great.
The Curve Pusher goes.
And that was
obviously, Stamper Disc.
That was an really early hard learning for us. There's nobody does it commercially in Australia, although it's, I don't know, there's been talk of it, I don't know. And we live or die by the quality of our stampers. I'm not telling you guys it. And we, in the early days when before we landed on where we are now, it was really stressful because there were so many, as you know, there's so many variables. So if you're producing a record with a problem, whatever that problem is, you want to remove the problem. You got to figure out what it was that caused the problem. But was it within the pressing stage? Was it within the stamper stage? Was it damaged en route between the lacquer cutter and the stamper? Yeah. And so when we found Curve Pusher and Stamper Disc, their QA is fantastic, and their customer service is fantastic, and they're a long way away, right? But we can sometimes they'll send us an email to say that they've shipped stuff on a Thursday, their Thursday. It's not uncommon for us to get the stamper arrive on Monday.
Incredible.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, we love them.
We love this Stamper Disc family.
Them too.
Yeah, totally. I mean, let's all take a nice rainy holiday to Sheffield, shall we? I mean, I love it.
And they're just, and nothing's ever too much trouble. And
no, they're the sweetest salt of the earth people, like Elsie, Martin, everybody. They're gems. I mean, I was ready to turn in my Canadian passport and hop the ocean and go over there and work for them.
I would, except for the weather. I would, except.
I mean, I'm Canadian, so what?
Right. Yeah, we're a bit spoiled.
I mean, we have sun, but it's cold sun, so it's whatever.
And I think the other thing is they almost sometimes feel like an extension of us, because we can, a client will say, I don't know, they've discovered a problem, I don't know, whatever, but suddenly there's an urgency. They work with us to solve the problem rather than working against us to say, well, you have to go to the bottom of the queue. And there's never any of that. Anyway, enough fangirling on Stamper Disc.
No. Oh, I mean,
they were game changers.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, we could do a whole call-in episode about everybody that loves Stamper Discs for sure. That'd be
I'll contribute for sure.
Don't worry about that. I mean, okay. So what are the other two pressing plants in Australia?
So they're both down in Melbourne.
Okay.
There's one called Zenith, which has been around, I don't know, at least 30 years, and another one called Program, who maybe started in maybe a couple of years before us, 18 months before us or so.
Okay.
And the thing that I feel good about, I don't know if they'd say so, I think they probably would, is that it feels like we're growing the market in Australia because we're increasing the high quality capacity.
Right.
Rather, it's not like we're all sort of fighting for scraps. It doesn't feel like that at all. It feels like certainly more people in Australia are pressing. Yeah. And we're all working with the labels to, I guess, bring more stuff onshore to make it work better. So it feels fairly collaborative. No dramas at all.
That's great.
Yeah. And, we're a small country. So you can imagine for us, shipping is a really big deal. So, we sell quite a lot of stuff we're pressed quite a lot of stuff with Perth, which has a really robust live independent music scene. And so it's a really big effort for us to get. We actually have had to hold stuff over summer occasionally. We kind of look at the weather forecast coming through. We actually just did a country album for Sarah Storer. Do you get Sarah Storer over there? No,
I think so.
And we had a whole bunch of stuff literally ready to go, but the degrees, you're going to have to translate for me, but
I'm ready.
The forecast was for 42 degrees days out near where they are, which is kind of central Australia or central Queensland, New South Wales. And we just held because we just can't ship stuff through their vinyl, as you know, will not like that. So there's sort of another complicating factor for us. We've just got to be a bit careful shipping things around.
Oh, interesting.
It's 108 Americans.
Thank you.
That's 108 for you. Yeah. I mean, you don't. And because just to give people with non-geographical minds, how long is the driving time from Brisbane to Perth? It's forever.
It's forever. And I have no idea because I don't think I think
it's like driving across the US because we were watching some show in Australia and we were like Googling the distance, like how far is this?
What was the show?
Married at First Sight.
Yeah,
you guys have some great Married at First Sight drama.
It's 46 hours to drive from Brisbane to Perth. Yeah. And
did you? I don't know if you saw your map there, but there's an awful lot of desert between and Perth. So would you want to? Maybe not. Well, to give you an idea, it's not uncommon to drive from Brisbane to Sydney, and that's 1,000 kilometers. So that's a long day of driving. 10 hours or something like that.
Yeah. Well, and I think, one of the initial conversations we had was sort of like what some of the differences are. We had a conversation about the state of the industry, and we were talking about mostly North America. And we heard from a woman in India who we'll be speaking to as well. And she was just like, things are completely different here. And so we're really excited to learn about how the vinyl market looks in different areas. And we'd love to hear kind of just overall what things look like there. I mean, here there's all this Luminate drama right now. It's completely like not even something that's worried about there. So
well, look, we watch it. I'm aware of that. We have what's called the ARIA charts here, and look, it's tricky. So I don't know what ARIA stands for, Australian Recording something or other industry. And they do a pretty good job of assessing it. But the same as you, I guess what you guys have alluded to. But digital is easy to track. It's so easy, and so the ARIA charts are quite critical. But one of the challenges that we have here is that Australian music is not featured as highly in the charts. Yeah. Because we're getting, international, usually often American coming in. We had, I think of the top 100 artists last year, or say albums last year, I want to say 6 of them were Australian, something along those lines. So
Hilltop Hoods would have been up there, I'm sure.
Yeah. And I don't know, there was heaps of Taylor and, all those stuffs that we all know. So the Australian music industry is really interesting. There is a wealth of Australian music talent in Australia, and there's a wealth of enthusiasm and inspiration. But I think the music industry is finding its feet as to how we help those artists make money so that they can keep making music, so that we can have this vibrant artistic community. And it was sort of what we started talking about is I think the whole industry is in a state of flux, and I'm not sure, everybody's trying to figure out what the answer is. Obviously streaming, we know what that is. The big guys make a lot of money out of streaming. I guess we just need to figure out how can we help people survive and thrive in the music industry.
Yeah. Well, and for reference, the population of Australia in 2021 was 25 million, and the population of Canada was 38 million. And for everybody's reference, the population of California was 39 million at that time. So, I mean,
please tell me you're Googling that. You're not just pulling that out.
Well, I mean, I did know that the population of Canada was about 36 million people, because we always kind of laugh because our entire population is California, and we're like right on top of it. So, I mean, that's always kind of a joke for us. Yeah,
we're significantly less than California.
Yeah,
and so that comes with its own challenges, as you can imagine.
Absolutely. Well, and so in here in Canada, we have something called CanCon, which is federal legislation that mandates that a certain amount of percentage of artists and Canadian content, that's what the short form for CanCon is, needs to be played on the radio as because those royalties then go back into kind of like the federal system to ensure that there's a vibrant music scene. It was put in the 80s or the 70s, I believe. And I mean, that's the reason that we have technical schools and mastering programs and audio schools and stuff like that. So I wonder if there's something that's like that in Australia.
I think there is. So the ARIA charts are often different to the independent music charts, which is obviously the same for you. So there's just a lot of complexity around what people are actually buying, the physical music that they're buying versus what either they're listening to or what they're being given in the digital space. Yeah. And I personally think that, and we've also got challenges, which I'm sure you guys do as well, with live music venues. Insurance issues are problematic, and COVID didn't do anybody any favors. So there's a massive appetite here for great Australian music, and we're just trying to figure out how we get. There's the fans, and then there's great Australian music, and I think we're all just trying to navigate this space in between. How do we get this great Australian music to fans who are prepared to pay?
Yeah, totally.
And who want to pay, but who it's not that easy for them to find. So one of the things that we're looking at doing is offering access for fans on our website, because one of my great joys in life is that we get this talent, this unfiltered pool of talent walking literally through my door, coming in to pick up their records. And they're often independent musicians, often women. There's this group of Brisbane Australian women who are amazing, who are gutsy enough to come press vinyl, because that's a big commitment. So there's some, when they get to even small runs of vinyl, that's still a commitment for a musician. So we're in the process of figuring out how to work with record stores who are often desperate for access to that independent music, how we can work with our independent musicians who are pressing with us to tell the stores about these guys so that they can get in the hands of their fans.
Yeah.
And I think that's a real challenge. I don't really have any answers to it yet. We're literally still working it out. But we are also looking at putting pre-sales for our, the ability for our artists to put pre-sales up on our website, so we can send all our people there so that we can start supporting these independent musicians who are coming through. So there's new tools and new ideas, and I think we're all just walking the path to try and make it work.
Yeah, and that's the funniest thing I think about the access of regular bands that don't have representation. Now anybody can get a record made. It doesn't matter who you are. There's no There's no real gatekeeper that's saying you can't make records. So I mean, it's a cool space. It's a weird space to navigate, absolutely, because they're like, oh well, I don't know what to do with these now that I have them. And then they're like, oh right, I have to ship them, and you have to like figure out how to get them boxes and
well,
like, all
yeah,
that kind of stuff too.
and to that point, I was curious because here we have big distribution centers like Amped and AMS and the Orchard. Do you there ship typically to distribution centers to fulfill throughout Australia, or are you typically shipping direct to record stores?
Combination of those things. Basically, we ship wherever the artist asks us to, which is often the distribution centers, but often in the smaller category where the artists are coming in here, picking it up and sitting around licking stamps at their kitchen table at 2 o'clock in the morning. And they shouldn't be doing that. I think musicians should be out making music. So we're looking at, in this new iteration of our website, we're looking at offering shipping straight for those smaller artists, well, straight from here out to our customers, because we can get bulk shipping rates and just save them that step.
Yeah,
I just feel like
drop shipping is a game changer for people. I do it for some of the records that I make too. I think we're asking too much of our musicians, and they're not supposed to be business people by definition. They're artists, so let them be artists. So maybe if we can take over some of the tin tack stuff, which we do all the time, and take the load off them and let them both make money and have some more brain space, then I think we all win. Yeah. Well, we've chatted with a few pressing plants in Europe as well, and so my question, because Australia is very similar to Canada in a lot of ways, and being that we're part of the Commonwealth, and my question is, did the government of Australia have like any kind of positivity towards your endeavor? Did you approach them at all? Were they like, this is a great thing, we're going to support you because we like to help out everybody? Or was it like, is there environmental like perks or incentives or anything like that with the government that is helping you along?
Yeah, we've had a great deal of support from particularly the Queensland government.
Yep.
They have been nothing but helpful. We've had do you know Steve Pulse? He's a Canadian, I think. He's a musician. Okay, I won't worry about that story. I was going to tell you
it's great. I'll look him up.
Well, I'll summarize. It's a fairly long story, but it's worth, it's worth thinking. It's probably worth doing. So when back in the day, before, when we were both corporate people, we used to have we used to pay to have bands in our backyard. Like sometimes they called parlor gigs here. So we'd pay musicians to come out. All our friends would buy tickets and we'd get musicians out to play in our backyard. And they were brilliant. They were brilliant, fun events. And one of the first musicians that we got out was this Canadian guy, Google him, called Steve Pulse. And he's this crazy. Yeah, Poltz. He's this awesome, just a song, a troubadour.
He was at Folk Fest last year. I saw him last year.
Yeah, well, so you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
so he's
old hysterical.
School. Yeah, he's brilliant. Yeah. So he came out to our house, played, and then he said to Neil, again, so picturing this is back in our corporate life, he said to Neil, hey, I'm playing at this great festival in the States in a couple of weeks, you should come out. And through a series of coincidences, Neil turned do you know the High Sierra Festival?
Colorado, yeah?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. So Neil ended up there, and Steve Pulse saw him in the middle of a show, stopped the whole show, said, oh my God, it's my friend Neil from Australia. Everybody's got to look after him. So Neil spent these 3 days, basically got backstage pass, bar tickets, the whole bit, had this amazing time. And we've run into him a couple of times over the years. That was maybe, 6 years ago.
Yep.
And most recently he was playing at the Byron Bay Blues Festival last year, which we were at. So we're standing there in the crowd, 5,000 people. Suddenly Steve Pulse sees Neil in the crowd again, stops the whole show again and says, oh my God, it's my friend Neil. Steve's never one to let a story, truth stand in the way with story. So he said, oh my God, he started a pressing plant. He used up all his kids' college fund. He's living in a caravan down by the river. His wife left him, but he's pressing records. So,
and you're like, I did?
So we're standing in the middle of these 5,000 people at the Byron Blues Festival, dying of humiliation. And finally, he moved on, picked up his song, and off he went. And about 2 weeks after that, we were introduced to the Premier of Queensland.
Oh, wow.
And we were having a chat with her, and it was a political event. How those conversations go. She was delightful, but anyway, her partner, and Neil was, we were talking about the story and what we were doing. Her partner said, "Hey, I was at the Byron Blues Fest a couple of weeks ago, and there was this crazy guy called Steve Poltz who talked about this pressing plant. Was that you?" And so through a weird series of events, the Premier is really interested. It has been really supportive. We've got task force. Yeah. So possibly she would have been anyway, but it was just such a people love music and they love the story. And so we're in the process of applying for grants and various things.
Cool.
There's also a fair bit of environmental stuff that's happening that, it's much better to be pressing locally for a lot of reasons, including environmentally. So there's a lot of support there as well.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I did tell you it was a long story.
Oh,
that's a great story.
That was nothing. Don't worry. I mean,
I'm really fascinated though by how many those kismet things happen. How often something that happened years ago swings around and some connection happens. The more I get into having my own business, the more I realize if you're kind and generous and operate with the best intentions, it nearly always works.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think part of it as well, one of the things I've enjoyed is educating people about the process. And it's actually, I said this to you, Jen, I think in an email, you guys were really, when things were really dark, I would be walking along with my dog and listening to your podcast. And it was really reassuring to me to know that we weren't the only ones trying to communicate to the rest of the world what goes on in the process of making vinyl, because it's really tricky. And we're not telling any lies. We're not making up stories when we tell people this is what happens with the lacquer cutting and the stamper cutting. And one of the things I'm enjoying is, and I have this conversation maybe 3-4 times a day sometimes, this is how a record is made, because there's been so much lost knowledge over in Australia, I guess, over where you guys are as well. But 95% of people I speak to have no idea how a vinyl is made.
Yeah.
And the more people we can tell how a vinyl is made, and that it's a combination of artistry and machinery, which is really, I don't know any other thing that combines a craft with mechanics in the way that produced vinyl does.
Yeah, that's why I always call it the art of making vinyl. I think it's such an interesting combination of things. And for me, coming from that artistic background, it was a perfect kind of merging of my creative side with, my customer service and advising, I guess, side of things. So
are you shipping records to New Zealand?
Yes. Have we? I think once we have. There is a pressing plant in New Zealand as well.
Oh.
Who are producing really beautiful records. They do some of the Australian market as well.
Cool.
But they also cover off the New Zealand market pretty well. Yeah, I think New Zealand's had. I think they've got a long, as I understand it, a more comprehensive history with vinyl. I think. And again, if you think we've got a low population, it's smaller again. But yeah, I think there's been more of a tradition of vinyl over all the years in New Zealand, is my understanding.
You said there were other pressing plants there and nobody's really fighting for scraps. So what is the demand like? And are bands actively looking to press to vinyl?
Yes, absolutely they are. We get we get dozens of queries every week. I think that there's this huge rebirth of independent music coming through in Australia, and I think we're just at the beginning of it. I don't think we've seen the depth of it yet, because people are coming through, as we all know, not making any money out of streaming. So the way they're doing it is through vinyl. So, and I really do feel like we're right at the gateway of a new opening where the major labels are going to be pressing the big one, their local run of it here, which will be great. We're doing some of that already, and that's going to grow. And I think the more comfortable people get with with pressing locally, I think we all kind of win. Felt like a fudgy answer. I'm not sure that I know what the numbers are, and I think that's part of the problem. I don't think anybody knows what the numbers are right now, because where do you go to find that? Sales of record players are dramatically increasing. I think we're about to see a hockey stick in Australia, and I think it's just about to take.
What's the appetite like? What is the appetite of like the general record buyer in the stores? Like, is it if you walk into a record store in Australia, is it like a lot of just new records and there's not a lot of used records, or is there still used records floating around in Australia?
Yes. So
yeah,
it really depends on the unique record store, same as everywhere, I guess. But yeah, used as very common, as is new. We also have really popular used record store market days that are massively popular. I don't know, once a month here, which you get. It skews male still, particularly the used market, the used record market. But I think that's changing. I'm seeing more and more female interest in vinyl coming through, and I think that's going to increase, I think, both the buying power, and I think it's going to change the kind of vinyl that is being pressed as well. I think that historically there's been demand for, I guess, male music. I'm speaking really broadly, but okay. I think that's because traditionally males have been the buyers, but increasingly, do you guys know G-Flip?
I don't think so.
G-Flip's a big artist over here, and they press with us and have just done a big tour and a big sellout. And I think their identity is queer bogan. And I think, do you know what bogan is? Is that a Canadian?
I'm familiar just because of the numerous Australians that are in Canada.
Yeah. So. And I love that so much. And I think that is indicative of a move of really non-traditional music lovers. And I think G-Flip's popularity indicates that that's where we're moving, and that's where vinyl is moving. It's one of the things also, they're a very talented drummer, but I just think
look them up.
Yeah,
check it. It's really worth listening to. So I think it used to skew male. I think we need to accept the fact that there's a new audience coming, and I think we all need to get ready for that.
That's great.
Globally, yeah. That's exactly what we
absolutely
need. You would agree with that globally, would you?
Yeah, I would really love to find a way to survey this sort of upcoming generation to find out what those numbers look like, because I do think, especially with people in the pop scene like Taylor putting out records, I do think it's helping get that next generation interested in it, as much as a lot of people kind of like feel some kind of way about it, or the fact that, maybe she doesn't need 6 variants of every single thing, but the fact that she's putting it out is interesting. I mean, it's getting these 13, 14-year-olds buying records. That's what we need for jobs. So
absolutely. Our youngest is a 17-year-old girl, and we came home, I don't know, a little while ago, and she had just bought the latest Boy Genius album. And we literally busted her. She just opened it. She didn't think we were coming home. She was lying in front of, we all know this picture. She was lying in front of our record player in the sun. It was a gatefold with it's sort of like have you, the one, it's like an onion record skin. And there were temporary tattoos, and she was just inhaling the whole experience. The dog was lying beside her. And I sometimes think that vinyl can take you back to that memory of being 17 or 16, where everything feels so much. And even now, as a 52-year-old person, I can sometimes I can put vinyl on and I can feel like that 17-year-old again, whose life is ready and everything the feelings are so intense.
Totally.
And I think that's the magic of vinyl.
Yeah.
And everyone deserves that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Totally. Yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons that I think that we are always like that Jen felt compelled to create Women in Vinyl originally, but then for all of us crazy people to hitch onto her wagon and be like, no, let's go crusading, let's do this. But that's exactly it. It's like a teleporter. It is like you are instantaneously like back when you first heard that song or whatever. Like now I'm getting to the point where I feel like I have to organize my records, and that makes me feel like a grown up, and I hate it. But
don't do it. Don't do it.
See, this is the reinforcement that I need. Yeah, like chaos. Let chaos reign still.
Because no 17-year-old girl would organize their records.
And precisely. And I've been hanging on to that for 25 years, and I still have not.
Yeah.
Much to my mom's chagrin.
It's interesting. I've just been in a documentary that the Queensland government's doing called Women in Manufacturing. And cool. there's a real move towards highlighting women in music and in manufacturing as well. And I think there's value in that, because I think the more people that can be seen, I think we just need to be visible.
Mm-hmm.
Truly.
Well, and you need our perspective to continue to innovate it, right? Like we can't just have the people that have always given their input. We need other people's input, other people's ideas. And so I think that's part of the diversification, is in order to get us to the next place with manufacturing, because we have been doing it the same way. We do have only one lacquer manufacturer. We are doing it, like you said in the beginning, we need to, not look at the way that it's always been done. I can't remember if we were recording at that point or not. And so how do you do that? Well, you bring in people like you who don't have a background in this and who have a different opinion to maybe find a way to do it different.
Yeah.
And that's exciting.
Or have a different network and be like, oh, I know a person that does that.
Yeah.
I mean, exactly. I'm sure with Neil's architectural background, like he had some input on the building and how to put things in the building and where to put certain structural aspects to, work within your pressing space and things. So
yeah, absolutely. And we sort of back to the original thing, we didn't know what we didn't know. So we just did stuff that kind of made sense in our heads. And other people sometimes walk in and it's different. Mm-hmm. Everything we do is a little bit different, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably a strength that we did have to make it up as we went along, and a weakness both.
With part of that, like what was the way that you approached learning how to make a quality record, that you were like, nope, this is the one. This is what our standard is. This is what Suitcase is like in a record. This is what we represent. This is how we want to be represented and seen whenever we have our sticker on something. How did you get to that record?
It's a great question. This might be a simplistic answer. I feel like I want to give you a better answer, but we knew when we played the record on our turntable whether we loved it or not. And if we didn't love it, it wasn't up to standard.
Okay.
And that meant sometimes having to go back and getting new lacquer and dampers cut.
Sure.
Or we start again and press again. Maybe we came in as consumers, which is what we were, and said, as a consumer, this is not the best experience that I want to have. So therefore it's not up to our standards. Yeah. And now we know what that sounds like. But in the old days, I think we just put our consumer hats on. So this make me?
Did you one-to-one with other records that were from your collection? Like, ooh, I really like this one.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Yes.
Cool.
And I had to get over this. Part of my problem was I was so obsessive about noise in vinyl that I put on an ancient Dylan album of mine last weekend. It was actually my dad's. Yeah. I don't know how old it was. And it was really noisy. And I was devastated. And then I thought, oh, that's okay. That's fine. Or even the kids all know, it doesn't have to be one we press. I just can't turn off noisy vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
It is problematic for me. I need to look at it, assess it, go, okay, well, it's not ours. That's fine. I can enjoy it for what it is. But that I had to For a minute, the kids would freak out every time I put vinyl on, but it's fine now. I've made peace with it.
Well, since we're coming up on time, I do want to give you an opportunity to tell us, for anybody in Australia or beyond, what your pressing process is, like your minimums. Do you help with print? Give us sort of the rundown.
Give us the pitch.
Yeah, sure. So
give us.
So we press. We're based in Brisbane, and we love, local artists. We press up anything between 100 and, well, we haven't hit our maximum, but so far our biggest that we've done is 7,500. We pride ourselves on basically doing individual jobs for everybody. So we all spend a lot of time on the phone. Call us, talk to us, tell us what you're after. We've done it enough times now. We can often suggest things that will work best for you. So it's not a cookie cutter exercise. We handle all print as well. We can look at doing pre-sales if that helps. We can look at doing direct to customers if we all decide that it works as a thing. We just want artists to get beautiful music out, and we just want to help them do that. And sometimes people come to us and say, I want to press 300, and we talk about it a bit more, and maybe it turns out that they need to do a smaller pressing to start with. We're open to the idea of doing a bigger number of jackets to keep the economies of scale, and then we only do some of it now, some of it later. We call us and talk to us, really, and we deal with everything on a case-by-case basis. That's what we're here for.
I love that. It's great.
I mean, it's so fun. Unusual because nobody wants to be phone called anymore, Kathy.
No, I do.
You monster.
I do.
You monster.
It's so funny. I'm going to say none of our kids want to call anybody. Just call, because we're all humans at the other end of the line. You forget that when you're emailing people, but if you talk to them, you realize everybody's just trying to do the best they can, and we all just get a better outcome. Call us.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, Robin, you get to ask the question that she'll already know because she's listened to the podcast, but now has to answer.
It's so good. I mean, so Kathy, being that you are new-ish to your record collecting journey.
Thanks for ish. I'm grateful for the ish.
Yeah. I mean, you can't be Neil's partner in life and in work and not be a collector adjacent.
Yeah, correct. So,
yes. Yeah. I mean, like he would be like, ooh, I got you this record. And you're like, great. It goes right next to all of the other records that we own collectively together.
Yeah.
So it's totally fine. So if you were going to make yourself a 7-inch record and have anything on the A side and anything on the B side, a custom Kathy 7-inch record, what would that record look like?
We would have Dolly Parton's Jolene.
She's one of the team already.
Yes.
And I didn't fabricate that. I did not.
We got to go to Australia, man.
We would have Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands, Dylan.
Oh,
nice.
That's a powerful single. That's a powerful 7-inch.
It's pretty great, isn't it? Yeah.
Great job. And like no hesitations, just 1-2 punch. I love it.
Yeah. And the other thing that I've made peace with is that I'm not very cool musically, and that's okay.
I like it.
I just listen to those two forever and ever, and I'd be happy.
That's great. I love that.
It's great.
So, Kathy Wilson, this is your time to shill. You got to shill Suitcase Records. You tell us where we can find you, all of your socials, run it down. Give us the biggest name that's been in your plant that you were like gobsmacked over. Who are your best band friends? I want to know who's been there.
So, well, see, I've got to compensate for you guys because a lot of them are Australian. So Savage Garden, you guys.
Oh, wow.
Guys,
yeah.
Truly, madly, deeply. I am there. That
was us.
I'm there.
G-Flip's another one we're super proud of.
Cool.
Who else have we done? Troy Casadale, Peach PRC. We're just loving we love the big ones and we love the small ones equally. So
how do we get the hoods in there? That's my still.
That's coming, I reckon. Okay. I'm working. I reckon that's in the wind. I reckon.
I need a reissue of The Calling because it is like $400 to get it shipped from Australia.
Well, you need to come over here then.
I mean, that's the thing.
Bring an empty suitcase and
to Suitcase Records.
To Suitcase Records.
Oh my God, that's the best idea for merch. That is the best idea for merch that you just came up with, and
Well, that's how we got our name, because when we used to do the our backyard gigs, all the bands used to arrive with suitcase full of merch at our backyard. So that's where Suitcase Records came from, including Steve Potts.
I love that.
That's so beautiful.
Well, Kathy, thank you so much. It was so wonderful to meet you.
Oh yeah, and how do we find you on socials? Where are you on socials? Visit
our website. So socials are Suitcase Records, or suitcaserecords.com.au. It's a place to find us.
Yeah.
And we'll link your Women in Vinyl article too.
Yeah, we will.
That would be really great. Thank you. And that seems to have spiraled out of control. That was like nearly an hour and a half. I don't know quite how that happened. Please feel free to try to drop out the phone calls and the weirdness.
Ray's fantastic. Yeah. It'll be
Ray's fantastic. You're fantastic. This was awesome. I mean, they always go overtime when we have a good time. When we're like struggling, that's when it's like, oh, we're only at 40 minutes. What else can I ask you?
Yeah.
Ooh, so don't.
Let me ask that question again. Yeah.
But in another.
Oh, it's such a joy.
No, you're a joy. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Thands, you guys.
Have a great day.
Call me if there's anything we can do, but otherwise, let's stay in touch, because
absolutely.
The year is young.
We gotta figure out how to get down under.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and New Zealand.
Put some shrimp.
Need to time it. Yeah, I'll come to New Zealand with you. Come here, and then we'll go to New Zealand together.
Perfect.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Love it.
All right.
Kathy Wilson, everybody. Kathy Wilson of Suitcase Records. You're a joy and a treasure. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Join the conversation on social media at Women in Vinyl. We want to hear from you. Shoot us a message for topics you want to hear, feedback, and more to info@womeninvinyl.com. Huge shout out and thank you for all our supporters, affiliates, and sponsors like Marshall Headphones. Visit our website, womeninvinyl.com, for ways to get involved, and you can always contribute to the education, demystification, and diversification of the vinyl industry by donating at womeninvinyl.com/donate. See you next time.
This episode has been brought to you by Women in Vinyl and Red Spade Records. Thank you for listening. Please remember to subscribe, and you can always contact us directly by visiting www.womeninvinyl.com.